What if the greatest secret about your existence isn't hidden in some ancient vault or guarded by mysterious orders, but locked inside your own mind? Picture this for a moment. You wake up tomorrow morning, and suddenly, you remember everything. Not just your childhood birthday parties or your first heartbreak. Everything. Every life you've ever lived. Every face you've loved. Every death you've suffered. Every crime you've committed. Every betrayal you've endured. Would you even want to know? This is the question that haunted Helena Blavatsky, one of the most controversial and misunderstood figures of the 19th century. A woman who claimed to have accessed truths that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. And her answer to this riddle, the riddle of why we don't remember our past lives, is nothing short of disturbing. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If reincarnation is real, if your soul has traveled through dozens, perhaps hundreds of bodies across time, then why does your mind feel like a blank slate every time you're born? Why do you remember embarrassing moments from middle school, but have zero recollection of dying in a battlefield, of holding a lover's hand in ancient Egypt, of watching your children grow in a village that no longer exists? The easy answer is that it's all a lie. That there are no past lives, that this is all we get. But Blavatsky offered a different explanation, a far more unsettling one. She didn't ask what was erased. She asked who was doing the erasing and why. And the answer she found points the finger directly at you. Not some cosmic force, not a punishing God, not a system designed to keep you ignorant. You, the same consciousness that desperately wants to remember, is the same consciousness that, at a deeper level, chose to forget. You are both the prisoner and the architect of your own amnesia. If that sounds impossible, stay with me. Because what comes next might change the way you understand not only your past, but your present. If you're enjoying this so far, subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. It really helps bring more content like this to you. Before we dive into Blavatsky's shocking revelation, we need to understand who she was and why her ideas still echo through spiritual circles more than a century after her death. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky was born in 1831 in what is now Ukraine. From a young age, she was different, strange, the kind of child who saw things others couldn't see, who spoke of invisible companions, who seemed to carry knowledge far beyond her years. By the time she was a young woman, she had already traveled across continents, studied with mystics in India and Tibet, and claimed to have accessed secret teachings that had been hidden from the Western world for millennia. In 1875, she co-founded the Theosophical Society, an organization dedicated to exploring the mysteries of existence, including the nature of the soul, the reality of reincarnation, and the hidden laws governing human evolution. Her writings, particularly The Secret Doctrine and Isis Unveiled, became controversial landmarks in esoteric thought. Critics called her a fraud, followers called her a prophet. But regardless of where you stand, one thing is undeniable. She asked questions that most people were too afraid to ask. And the question of past life memory was one of her favorites. You see, by the late 1800s, the idea of reincarnation wasn't new. Eastern religions had spoken of it for thousands of years, but Western thinkers were only beginning to grapple with its implications. And one of the biggest problems with the concept was this: if we've lived before, where are the memories? It's a fair question. Memory, after all, is how we know who we are. It's the thread that connects yesterday to today, childhood to adulthood, experience to identity. Without memory, you'd wake up every morning as a stranger to yourself. So if the soul carries experience from life to life, why doesn't the new personality have access to it? Why does every human being start from apparent scratch? Some people dismissed the problem entirely. We don't remember because there's nothing to remember, they said. Reincarnation is just a comforting myth. Others offered spiritual explanations. It's a divine mystery, they said. We're not meant to know. But Blavatsky refused both easy exits. She wasn't content with denial, and she wasn't satisfied with vague mysticism. She wanted to understand the mechanism, the why behind the what, the logic hidden inside what appeared to be cosmic cruelty, and that's when she uncovered something that most people aren't ready to hear. The forgetting, she argued, isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. It isn't punishment, it's protection. And it doesn't come from outside, it comes from within. But to truly understand what she meant, We first need to explore the strange traces that past lives leave behind, the echoes that slip through the veil even when the veil is firmly in place. Because while you may not remember your past lives, there's a very good chance you felt them. Now I'm curious, where are you watching this from? What city in the United States or what country around the world is this reaching you? Drop it in the comments, I'd love to know. Let's start with something you've probably experienced but couldn't quite explain. You walk into a place you've never been before, a small town, a foreign city, a random street corner, and something happens. A feeling washes over you. Not confusion, recognition, as if you've stood in this exact spot before. As if this place knows you and you know it. The air feels different. The light hits your skin in a way that feels ancient, familiar, almost like coming home. Déjà vu, we call it. A trick of the brain, scientists say. A glitch in memory processing. But what if it's more than that? Blavatsky would say that what you're experiencing is a crack in the veil, a moment when the filter between your current personality and your deeper self becomes thin enough to let something through. Not a full memory, never a full memory, but a resonance. A vibration from another time that your soul recognizes, even if your mind cannot name it. Then there are the people. You meet someone for the first time, and within minutes, the connection feels impossible. There's no logical reason for this intimacy. You haven't shared experiences, haven't built history, haven't earned the depth of feeling that suddenly floods you. And yet, there it is. A bond that feels older than this life could account for, or the opposite happens. You meet someone and without any justification, something in you recoils, an instant distrust, a coldness you can't explain. They've done nothing wrong, at least not in this timeline, but some part of you treats them like a threat, like an old enemy whose face has been forgotten, but whose energy has not. These are the echoes, Blavatsky said, the residue of lives lived, connections formed, debts unpaid. The soul doesn't forget, it can't. But the conscious mind isn't equipped to process all that data, so the memory comes through sideways, not as story but as feeling. And then there are the fears. Think about your deepest irrational terror, the thing that grips you even though you know logically that you're safe. Fear of drowning when you've never been underwater, fear of fire when you've never been burned, fear of abandonment when everyone around you has stayed, panic in enclosed spaces when you've never been trapped. Science points to genetics, early trauma, learned behavior, and sometimes that's true. But sometimes the fear feels older, like it was born before you were, like your nervous system is remembering something that happened to another version of you, in another body, in another century. Blavatsky called this karmic residue, the imprint of experience that survives the death of the body and the forgetting of the mind. You don't know why you're afraid. You can't point to the incident. But your cells remember, your soul remembers, even when your brain has been wiped clean. The same applies to gifts, the child who plays piano as if she already knew how, the person who learns a language in weeks that takes others years, the artist who paints with mastery before ever being taught. Where does that come from? If this is really your first life, how can you be so good at something you've never practiced? Blavatsky's answer was simple. You have practiced, just not in this body. The skill isn't new. It's remembered, not consciously, not with images or words, but in your hands, your instincts, your reflexes. The soul carries forward what it mastered, even when the personality starts fresh. So here's the paradox. The memories aren't gone, they're hidden. The experiences aren't lost, they're translated. You feel them without seeing them. You carry them without knowing you're carrying them. But why? Why the elaborate concealment? If the soul wants to grow, wouldn't access to all its experiences accelerate that growth? That's what Blavatsky tackled next, and her answer will shake the romantic notion of past life memory to its core. If this is starting to make sense to you, drop a comment below with your thoughts, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Imagine for a moment that you could remember everything, not glimpses, not feelings, full, vivid, unfiltered memories of every life you've ever lived, every face you've loved, every war you've fought, every betrayal you've suffered, every mistake you've made, every death you've experienced. At first, it might seem like a gift. Finally answers, finally context, finally the missing pieces of who you really are. But Blavatsky urged her students to think deeper, to ask not what they would gain, but what they would lose. Picture waking up tomorrow with perfect recall of your last death. You see it in detail, the room, the faces, the final breath leaving your body. You feel the pain again, the fear, the desperate wish for more time. Now try to go about your day. Try to laugh with friends. Try to plan for a future. How easy is that when part of your mind is still trapped in the moment of your ending? Now multiply that by 50 lives. 100. Each with its own death scene. Some peaceful, yes, but others violent. Others lonely. Others filled with regret. How many deaths can a single mind hold before it breaks under the weight? Blavatsky believed that the human personality, the you that wakes up every morning and brushes your teeth, is simply not built to contain that volume of trauma. The conscious mind is a vessel, and every vessel has a limit. Pour too much in and it shatters. But the problem isn't just death, it's everything else too. Think about the loves, every person you've ever been devoted to across centuries, the children you raised who are now dust, the partners whose faces you'll never see again. If you remembered all of them, how could you ever fully invest in the relationships you have now? How could this life's love ever compete with 50 lifetimes of accumulated attachment? Or think about the grudges, the betrayals you've witnessed, the people who wronged you, who abandoned you, who destroyed what you built. And imagine discovering that some of those souls are now in your life again, wearing different faces, playing different roles. Your brother might have been your murderer. Your best friend might have been your oppressor. How do you love someone when your memory tells you they once burned your village? Blavatsky understood that memory, far from being a path to liberation, could become a prison, a cage of resentment, longing, and comparison. The soul wouldn't grow, it would stagnate, forever looking backward, unable to see the road ahead. And so the veil exists, not as punishment, but as mercy. Not as theft, but as gift. The forgetting allows you to start fresh, to love without the contamination of old wounds, to trust without the shadow of ancient betrayals, to live this life as if it matters, because in a very real sense, it's the only one you can access. The soul, Blavatsky taught, is wise enough to know its own limits, even when the personality demands more. Here's where the story takes its sharpest turn. Most people, when they think about past life amnesia, imagine themselves as victims. Someone, God, the universe, some cosmic bureaucracy, has stolen their memories. They've been robbed of their history, locked out of their own soul's archives. Blavatsky rejected this entirely. In her view, there is no external thief. There is no punishing system. The veil of forgetting isn't imposed from above, it's chosen from within. And the being who makes that choice is you. Not the you reading this, not the personality that carries your name, but the higher aspect of your consciousness. The part that exists beyond time, beyond a single incarnation, beyond the narrow window of one human life. This is the concept Blavatsky called the higher self, the true self, the silent observer that watches every incarnation like a director watching actors on a stage. This self knows the full story, every line, every scene, every twist, and before each new birth, this self makes a critical decision, what to carry forward and what to leave behind. The memories are not destroyed. They're filed, stored, held in trust. But the higher self understands something the lower personality does not. Giving full access to those files would overwhelm the new character, contaminate its choices, and prevent genuine growth. So the veil descends, not as cruelty, but as strategy. Not as ignorance enforced, but as wisdom applied. This is the shocking part, the truth most people aren't ready to accept. You are not a victim of forgetting. You are its architect. You chose this. Before this life began, in a state of consciousness you can no longer access, you agreed to the blindfold, because you knew, on some level deeper than thought, that blindness was the only way forward. It's as if you're playing a game, and part of the game's design is that you forget you chose to play. The moment you remember fully, the game loses its stakes, the lessons lose their weight, the growth stops. If this content is opening your mind, subscribe now so you don't miss the next chapters of this journey. But what does the soul bring through, if not explicit memories? According to Blavatsky, it brings tendencies, inclinations, patterns, the essence of experience without the form. Think of it like this. You don't need to remember a specific fire to fear flames. The terror can survive without the narrative. You don't need to recall the exact moment you learned compassion to feel compassionate now. The quality travels even when the scene that created it is erased. This is how karma operates beneath the surface of conscious awareness. You might not remember the lives where you abused power, but you're born into circumstances that teach you humility. You don't recall the relationships you destroyed, but you find yourself struggling with intimacy in ways that feel older than your childhood. The lesson continues, the homework remains, but the storyboard is hidden. Blavatsky used a striking metaphor. She said the soul is like a pearl diver who plunges into dark water. Each dive, each incarnation, yields something, a pearl of wisdom, a scar of suffering, a muscle of courage. When the diver returns to the surface, to the higher realms between lives, those pearls are examined, sorted, integrated. And when the diver plunges again into a new body, the pearls stay above. Only the strength gained from finding them descends. So you come into this life with invisible wealth. You don't see the pearls, but you feel their weight in your character. You don't remember collecting them, but their influence shapes your instincts, your attractions, your revulsions, your gifts. The forgetting then isn't total, it's selective. The surface mind is wiped clean, but the depth remains rich. And there's one more twist Blavatsky introduced, one that terrifies the ego more than anything else. She said that the parts of you most desperate to remember past lives are often the parts least prepared to handle what they'd find. The ego wants stories, titles, status. I was a queen, I was a warrior, I was someone important. But the higher self knows that those identities are distractions, that clinging to who you were prevents you from becoming who you need to be, that the only real question isn't who was I, but who am I becoming? Like this video right now, it truly helps spread this message to others who need it. Let's bring this out of the clouds and into your daily life. Look around you. Look at your fears, your talents, your relationships, your patterns. Everything you are right now is a living document of everything you've been, even if you can't read the text directly. That person who triggers you for no logical reason, maybe they're not a random irritant. Maybe they're a returning chapter in a story you can't quite see. The job that feels like a prison? Perhaps it's a classroom you've avoided before. The dream you can't shake, the one that feels more like memory than fantasy. Maybe it is. Blavatsky taught that once you understand how karma operates beneath the veil, you stop blaming circumstances and start reading them. You stop asking, why is this happening to me, and start asking, what is this teaching me? The veil doesn't block the lesson. It just hides the backstory, and in a way, that makes the lesson purer. You can't cheat. You can't say, I already learned this in 1403. You have to learn it fresh, prove it in action, earn it again with this body and this mind. This is the opportunity hidden inside the amnesia. Not just protection from pain, but invitation to growth without shortcuts. So here you stand, at the edge of two possible responses to everything you've just heard. One response is frustration. You can resent the veil. You can demand access to your files, push against the forgetting, feel cheated by the cosmic design. You can spend your life trying to recover what was hidden, searching for past life regressions, chasing memories like a detective searching for stolen goods. The other response is acceptance. You can trust that the veil exists for reasons your conscious mind cannot fully grasp. You can stop fighting the design and start working with it. You can ask not, who was I? But, what is this life asking of me right now? This isn't about giving up curiosity. It's about redirecting it. Instead of digging into the past, you dig into the present, where every lesson of the past is already alive, disguised as challenge, relationship, fear, gift. Blavatsky never said past life memories were forbidden forever. She suggested that as the soul matures, the veil thins naturally, not through force, not through spiritual tourism, but through genuine evolution. At a certain point, glimpses come, not as entertainment but as confirmation, not as story but as knowing. But that thinning happens when you're ready, when the ego is quiet enough not to hijack what it finds, when the personality is stable enough not to shatter under the weight. What would you choose? Comment below. I really want to know what you think. If Blavatsky was right, then you are not a victim of this life. You are not a random soul tossed into random circumstances. You are a being who, at some level of consciousness, agreed to this. You chose this body, you chose these challenges, you chose these relationships, not randomly, but because they offer exactly what you need to learn next. And you chose to forget, not because you were weak, but because you were wise. Because you knew that the game only works if you take it seriously. Because a test where you can see the answers isn't really a test at all. This is the confrontation, not with some external enemy, but with your own design. The part of you that suffers is the same part that created the conditions for suffering, not out of cruelty, but out of love for its own growth. And the way out isn't through remembering the past. It's through mastering the present. Every time you choose love over resentment, you prove you've learned something, whether you remember learning it or not. Every time you face a fear, you pass an exam you can't even see. Every time you forgive someone without needing to know what they did before, you demonstrate a wisdom that transcends memory. The veil will lift when it's time, but you don't wait for it passively. You earn the lifting by how you live now, by who you become when you can't see the full picture. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. So what's the final word? Helena Blavatsky's shocking answer isn't that someone stole your memory. It's that you, the deepest you, the eternal you, chose to let it go. Not because the past doesn't matter, but because the present matters more. Not because your history is worthless, but because your potential is priceless. You don't need to remember every life to honor every lesson. You carry those lessons in your bones, in your instincts, in the strange familiarity of certain places and faces. You don't need to see the map to walk the path. The path is under your feet right now. And maybe the real gift isn't memory at all. Maybe it's freedom. Freedom from the weight of every wound. Freedom from the trap of every old identity. Freedom to become something new, not despite the forgetting, but because of it. So the next time you wonder who you were, ask a better question. Who are you becoming? And the next time you mourn what you can't remember, celebrate what you still carry, without needing to name it. The veil isn't your enemy. It might just be your oldest friend. If you've made it this far, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share in the comments what resonated most with you on this journey. I'll see you in the next one.